Welcome in to Fantasy Sanctuary. It's Monday, so of course we are here drafting in Underdog's big board draft this week. We'll be getting into one of them very soon, but we've got plenty to talk about. The NFL Combine just behind us, plenty of winners and losers from that. Of course, the Deebo Samuel fallout, all the stuff going on with Matthew Stafford, and much more. Lots of rumors out there. Tyler, what do you think was the most important piece of information we learned in the last week?
I think we learned that the running backs are indeed athletic. I think the tight ends were a mixed bag. It's hard to take away too many things just because a lot of the top prospects just didn't run drills, and so we're gonna have to fill in the gaps with pro days. But I think we can dock a couple of those guys, like the Scatabos of the world, of kind of shying away from that. So docking their athleticism a bit, but at the end of the day. Fear of the unknown could make a great bargain. Scatabo was probably a guy who was a little mispriced. And so if he drops a couple rounds because he didn't work out and maybe he's getting docked artificially this early in the process. But for the most part, I do think some of these veteran running backs are indeed in trouble just because, as JJ Zacharyson noted, out of all the running backs that competed, like one had poor to subpar, athleticism, speed scores. Everybody else was good to awesome. And that bodes well for, the 2017 running back class is getting long in the tooth. And now these running backs with just really, really good speed, explosion, agility are coming in. You saw guys like Mike McDaniels getting really excited over guys like Travion Henderson and stuff. So I think at the end of the day, with the way the running backs are shifting in the game as far as taking advantage of two high safeties and these defenses trying to take away the pass game, this could be the class where a lot of teams attack with these rookie running backs as outlets for explosive passes. Really stood out to me as far as the one actionable takeaway, minus maybe just that this quarterback class is going to be really top heavy, with Shadur Sanders not really being a favorite to be a top half guy coming out of the combine.
Yeah, just going back to your running back point, it feels so inevitable. But if this running back class hits in the way that we expect it to at this point, then it's going to be another big year for zero RB builds and hero RB builds. Like, there's going to be so much value in these running backs. But because they're not the kind of Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs types on paper outside of Ashton Genty, it feels like someone is going to smash in that round 5 to 6 range of drafts. Maybe there's somebody in like the traditional dead zone who comes out of there and is just a fantastic value. And obviously, it is going to be slow to start the year for a lot of these guys, as we see. And you can already see some of the week one victory laps. Oh, you guys thought such and such was a great running back to draft. What an idiot. And then we'll fast forward to week 12, when all the value starts coming from them. And it will be a good time, I have to imagine. But we are into the draft, picking at the 6th spot overall. Anything you've noticed from the early couple of rounds with the news changing how it has over the last couple of weeks? Is Ashton Genty getting pushed further up? Is Brock Bowers sliding a little bit with some of these combine rumors about the Raiders?
He was definitely rising as the potential to pair with Kingmaker Matthew Stafford was on deck. He's now gone right back to kind of his place in the stable now that it's been a question mark. Puka Nacua is not slipping as much without Stafford, and that stands out as the guy I'm taking above a lot of these guys, given the wide open spaces for him to smash, no cup. And I mean, my God, the guy had just insane target shares, efficiencies. If you're good with it, I'm good with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I love CD Lamb, but the difference between him and Puka Nacua feels minimal. Obviously, we've got Dak coming back off an injury, and it's kind of interesting that the Cowboys were completely quiet, and I know plenty's been made about this. The idea that Jerry Jones is so used to talking and loves the publicity that when he actually shuts up for once, it kind of makes you stop and think, what is it that the Cowboys are up to? Those rumors that they've had talks with the Titans about trading up to the number 1 overall spot, which I would not love for CD Lamb. I think, fine, it would be the kind of Cowboys move that they would love to do, but I don't think I would feel great about it. Would you, if a rookie quarterback came into Dallas, how far down would you drop CD Lamb?
uh, Pretty far, given that Cam Ward stands out as the top guy, and his big thing is like accuracy concerns. His deep ball seems to be the strength, but CeeDee Lamb has kind of proven to be like an elite slot guy who's not as good out wide. And that's the other thing, that like Nakua's ability to win outside and inside and be schemed all over the place. There's also just a looming like fear of Brian Schottenheimer. Seems like Mike McCarthy was the one calling and leading the plays in Dallas when they were crushing. So really am worried about the pace kind of dropping with more shifts, more motions, and them trying to focus the run game. That said, it seems like the rumors of the Giants are the leaders in the clubhouse to trade to one for Cam Ward because their butts are on the line with a need to really get a quarterback adjusted, and the Dallas Cowboys are aware that taking a running back at 12 would be a huge mistake with all the needs they have. So I think the bigger issue with Lamb is that Cup is now apparently like Dallas is interested in bringing in a guy like Cup on an affordable play to fill out wide receiver 2. And he's a pretty good target earner. So I'd have that concern with Lamb as well right now.
Yeah, and we'll come back to this in a minute, but I'm good with AJ Brown here. Or I mean, if you fancy one of running backs, I don't mind that. But my lean would be AJ Brown.
Let's get some AJ Brown.
So yeah, our good guy, historical anomalies, making the point. So the Cowboys would trade Dak and move up to the number 1 spot. Or would Dak be part of that trade? I think that's what's so interesting because, like, for the Cowboys to move on from Dak, it's gonna take a lot of work. You'd have to do it as a pre-June 1st. You couldn't postpone this because you'd want the assets to come back before then. But you're talking insane amounts of dead money, which makes me think that it is nonsense. I think that maybe you could say, all right, well, maybe Dak's more injured than we know. But I think if the Cowboys trade up, I think it's saying we're going up to get Travis Hunter, or we're going up to get somebody else that they believe is truly a complete stud. But I mean, I'm not sure that I'd want to ever part with that capital to get a non-QB. Is that something you could see him doing?
No, I mean, my thing is, let's put it to the common sense meter. They don't need a quarterback. They are happy with Dak, and they're so happy with Dak that they waited to overpay because they didn't want to pay him early. They didn't want to truly reset anyway when Romo was coming out and dealing with injuries and stuff. They didn't want to move on from Romo. I find it very hard to believe they want to move on from Dak all of a sudden, who's the lone face of the franchise outside of Micah Parsons, who still needs to be paid. Last time I checked, and they have a ton of needs and not a ton of money. If New Orleans Saints looked at the books and looked at Derek Carr and came to the conclusion that we have to make this work, I don't know how the Cowboys look at Dak and look at the landscape. And the other thing is the Titans are trying to trade out of one. There's no surefire locked in number 1 blue chip prospect is what we're really hearing. Abdul Carter having a stress fracture with an unknown seriousness now creates even more unknown. So it's like, the number 1 team is trying to trade out. The Giants are probably going to trade up because of the need. And, the moving from 3 to 1 is a lot less than 12 to 1. So it just doesn't pass the sniff test and the needs. And you mentioned the money alone. And they haven't even built through a rookie quarterback contract the first time anyway. So I don't trust that they would figure out how to do it now with a worse O-line and a worse defense.
Yeah, so Breece Hall falls to us, but neither of us are going to be in on him. I would rather take Chase Brown or Kyren Williams. I'd rank him just straight up higher than him. Do you want to take Kyren particularly, or are you interested in anyone else?
I think we've already made the bet on Puka. I feel very comfortable making the bet on Kyren. Do a little Rams stack here. We haven't had as much Kyren in some of our drafts as we try to build out some of these second round running backs, third round tight ends, wide receivers. So as far as portfolio and then team combos, looking to kind of build that out. I think everyone really saw that like Sean McVay loves Kyren. He's going to use Kyren, and Kyren still smashed even his early expensive 1-2 turn ADP, despite the entire offensive line losing 4 starters in the first few weeks of the season. And displaying games where he might get 1 or 2 catches or he might get 7. So he's kind of your non-athletic Kenneth Walker. And he's now had 2 years back-to-back proving that he's just the coach's guy. I don't see them moving towards Corum with Stafford on a, new contract with some moving parts at O-line. And the Rams could really just bounce back in a big way. The defense overperformed in large part. That's not sticky. We saw the Bears regress in that exact type of thing that could lead to more scoring. And the offensive line could just get, more health run out, let alone. And we see this offense do much better because they lost 4 O-line starters, Puka for like 6 weeks, Cup for 4 weeks, and a lot of these pieces still did really, really well. So I think Chase Brown has a little bit more risk than Kyron does. I think Kyron is insulated by Corum much more than Chase Brown is insulated by Khalil Herbert. The staff does want another person in there. And so I don't think Chase Brown dips below like the 5th round. But there's a chance that the Bengals, get a guy like Henderson or Caleb Johnson, who might have underperformed for some folks. We mentioned Combine, but it seems like in the ways that Caleb Johnson wins and his splits, I'd be willing to buy dips on him. I'm not too overly concerned at this point, given who he is as a runner. I don't want to overreact or overcorrect with guys like that coming out of the combine.
Yeah, let's definitely come back to that in a second. But we're up. Ted McMillan, Roma Dunze, Rashi Rice, DK Metcalf, the top 4 wide receivers here. Running back Joe Mixon, Chuba Hubbard. I'd be good with either of the running backs, but the lean Ted McMillan, it feels like he's only going one way. Do you just want to grab him now as our wide receiver 3 and feel really good about that wide receiver room?
I do. I recognize some names in here, so I do expect a little bit of a wide receiver run. And what I've noticed is that Joe Mixon, Chuba Hubbard are guys that are falling as folks load up on Hampton and Henderson and guys like that. So, we potentially get to eat our cake, have our cake and eat it too with some of these vet running backs early right after the combine.
Yeah, and one point I just want to come back to is what you were mentioning about the Bengals and how they could take a running back. Like, I definitely sort of accept your point there, and I think that's very realistic because they are trying to build this team through offense. But it feels like if they really do want to have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, even Mike Gesicki back, as well as re-sign Trey Hendrickson, then they're going to absolutely have to nail the draft picks, and the vast majority need to come through the defense and the offensive line. Like, it feels inevitable that if they're going to save their team from being terrible like they were last season when they were terrible on defense and terrible on the offensive line, then you've got to really solidify those. You need to be doubling up. It's not enough to just say, okay, we're going to use a round 1 selection on, an edge rusher. It's you use a round 1 selection and a round 3 selection. They really need to be double tapping those positions and really trying to make sure that they get it right immediately, because this window for them, they can say, yes, the window exists as long as Joe Burrow's there, but you can't just keep doing this without actually getting the results. So part of me thinks that the running back position, when they do draft one, it is going to be late. But that doesn't mean that the player is not somebody who can make a difference, as we've seen from the guys like Chase Brown, Kyron Williams. You can still make a difference late.
And we saw Bucky be a mid-round running back with a really poor RAS come in and take the job away from Rashad by the end of the season because of how consistent and successful he was. So yeah, definitely a deep enough class where I don't think draft capital alone protects some of these guys who have gotten coaching, comments about managing workload. I don't want to ignore last summer's comments because of just bad runouts with health and availability of running backs. Are we both in alignment that George Kittle feels like a screaming smash right now in the mid-5th with Debo gone?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even if it's just for touchdown equity, I still like what George Kittle's doing. Last year, he looked fresher than he had the previous year. So very much still in on George Kittle. In terms of the question we're getting in the chat, with the Texans considering an early RB or another year of Mixon, I think I could see them taking a running back if it wasn't for the fact that their wide receiver room's so bereft, and even the tight end position there, they're not getting anything really, are they? So if you were gonna take shots on an offensive player, I think it's the offensive line. I think potentially a wide receiver, depending on who was there when they're on the board. Obviously, there's plenty of people connecting them to veterans as we get close to free agency. Guys like Keenan Allen, I saw floated there, as well as Godwin. But yeah, it's a little tough for me.
And I will say, as the Houston native, and Coach Week Index shout out was just in the chat earlier. He's a great resource now to all the combine rumors. I go back and look at what all the coaching and GM staff say, because we got a lot of good comments from them in Indy, and I think a lot of people undervalue those until months later. Nick Caley, the new offensive coordinator, said he loves Joe Mixon's mentality, loves the way he runs, loves the way he finishes. We love a guy who finishes. He's a violent runner, yada, yada, yada. And then D'Amico Ryans on the 25th, just a week ago, said getting better protection for Stroud is the main point of emphasis for us. He's a pretty good quarterback when he's protected and has a clean pocket. And the early rumors now are that the Texans are eyeing one of these guards. The guards in the combine smashed. And so it looks like the interior O-line is going to be a huge point of depth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of those guys go in the first and second round, given how top heavy the skill positions are. And the Texans had one of the worst O-lines and one of the worst coached O-lines in the league last year. So I think one of the things that insulates Mixon from not just the GM, the OC, and the head coach liking him and giving him an extension last year was the fact that when he was healthy, he still played very well. They gave him all of the work. And they know as much as anybody else that protecting Stroud and making this offensive line, a solidified unit is the biggest point of emphasis. And so I think that takes them out of the running of getting one of these impact runners. And at the end of the day, I think they are aware that that's how they have to shift things. Mixon's their guy for the next year or two because they need to fix this O-line and they need to beef up the D-line. And so I think that insulates both. And you mentioned the wide receiver. They probably get some free agent guys and try to target some of these draft guys. But wide receiver and O-line is just too important to take shots at running back for this team.
Yeah. Do you want to go with our guy James Conner here, or are you feeling a lean to anyone else? Like for me, this is a simple one that I'd be fine with James Conner. If we hadn't got Tet in the last round, maybe it would have been Luther Burden, but I'm fine. Just circling back to the chat on that, the fact that Trey Smith got franchise tagged by the Chiefs, $23 million. The free agent market for guards is going to just explode, and that's going to make it harder, which then makes those draft selections even more important. So very much kind of look, I mean, we see this stuff in the draft, like when the Lions took Jahmyr Gibbs, nobody expected it, but I probably wouldn't be kind of really expecting it. Down saying, am I crazy thinking with two and another screaming at the board that Nick Chubb is now the best last running back on the clock? We were just doing some slow draft selections for another one of the slow draft videos that we've been doing. And when you get down to that kind of, 200 ADP, I think that Nick Chubb is fine. Like, I don't expect Nick Chubb ever to be close to what he was before, but I don't mind him. I mean, the real question comes down to where is he? Like, which team carves out a role for him and says, look, we're going to try and keep you fresh till late on in the season.
He definitely stands out as maybe the best version of Kareem Hunt, older guy with not as much juice, but trusted as the big body goal line guy. We've seen how he trains. So with an offseason away from injury, I wouldn't be surprised if he looks a little bit better than he did last year. I definitely don't think there's any chance in hell he returns to who he was turning 30. That was the big reason why I faded him coming off of that double ligament knee injury. We shared with the people that the fantasy docs gave us good info. If you're over the age of 25, your injury recovery, especially at these skills positions, is a lot worse, especially for some of these major injuries, especially at running back. So it was one of the reasons why there was a slight, way for J.K. Dobbins to win, and Nick Chubb had a very thin path to win. And we saw both of those things work out. So at this point in his career, I mean, the Chiefs are a guy that could just say, we're going to trade, Kareem Hunt for Chubb as a cheap guy, 3 years younger, whatever. He could easily go be a depth guy somewhere trusted. He also, he just excels at the things that coaches like. But I could also see teams just saying that, like, we're good. I think he's just a household name enough and beloved enough that he'll get something somewhere. I don't mind taking a shot on him. He's probably a better bet than Marshawn Lloyd, historically speaking. But I'm going youth most times there. Okay, we have a decision, but I think we probably agree on how we want to play this rookie over Brandon Ayuk, but we do have the San Francisco stack if you want to lean that way.
Yeah, I think I'm the rookie. I think that everything points up for Egbuka. I know that some people are saying, well, I saw some people saying that Matthew Golden is now the wide receiver 1 based on how well he tested at the weekend. I don't think that's the case. I think that Matthew Golden's still, there's still a healthy gap between him and some of the other guys. I don't dislike Brandon Ayuk. I know you were tweeting back and forth with Jeff Muller before, sort of talking about how even by week 5, we would expect Brandon Ayuk to be out there. And obviously, there's the potential for him to see a bigger role without Debo there. But I don't feel great about taking a lot of these guys who are carrying current injuries, particularly multi-ligament ones like the ACL, MCL that Ayuk had at this point in the offseason. I'd rather wait and get my exposure up to them as the offseason goes on and you get a chance to hear those positive reports. And even though it's going to cost you more, I'm just generally okay with that when you're building a portfolio of best ball.
No, absolutely. I do want to note I've been fading Brandon Ayuk because of the double ligament. I do just want to share that, to try to be impartial in the health bias, because I can be a little too locked in on fades or not. Um, you know, the some of the docs were talking Brandon Ayuk yesterday after Debo's trade got finalized, and one thing that they noted is that there's a chance he can start week 1, and they kind of lean that way given his age and the timeline. But he could get IR'd and start week 5 or 6. But his profile and the way he wins is historically something they see be successful. So I will adjust that if price adjusts a little bit to make me feel safer about it. I think I know who you want here, but go ahead and give your shout, because I'm very open to a couple different ways we play this.
Well, I'd be fine with Aaron Jones from a volume point of view.
Oh, I
Like,
thought you were going
I
to do
think,
Jalen.
I mean, like, yeah, I still want a decent amount of Jalen Warren, but we are creeping up into the 8th round here, and I do think Aaron Jones is probably just slightly better value.
I
I'm
still
just going
think
to share.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go on. That's fine.
I think that there's a solid chance he returns in Minnesota, just given that,
Yeah.
he's not going to command a lot of money. They don't want to spend a lot of money there. There's a little bit of whispers that it just makes sense to give him another year and see what happens. And in that case, he's definitely too cheap at this point in the season.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to our guy, Offer Schneid, who's crushing it on his own channel. Go and subscribe. I don't know if you can drop the link into our chat, Schneid, but make sure you do go and check him out. He's slowly getting up to those, like 400 or 500 subscribers. I know exactly how hard it is to get those numbers going. So very much appreciate the hard work he's putting in over there. Great content. Make sure you check it out. And also, leave a like, man. Go and do it. It's
I hit the
these
sub if you haven't
videos.
already either.
Yeah. These videos have been getting an awesome response, been pushing us to do even more and more best ball content. So truly appreciate everybody who has been hitting the like when we've been live. Tyler, how you feeling about where Debo Samuel is going after the trade? Like,
That's
so in this
another
one, round
that's another
6.
player I'm having to adjust I'm heavily leaning fade because his results versus man coverage, kind of like where I was fading Cup, and we've got a multi-year decline versus man coverage, a multi-year decline in efficiency in yards after the catch and things of that nature. But I do want to share that I think it was Matthew Betts who shared that the one place he did performed very well, in fact, career best in at 30 off of pneumonia, was Shanahan moved him into the slot, and he did the best he's ever done on those short target efficiencies. I think he had the highest pop there, and that figures to be exactly where Washington's going to use him, which is probably why he ended up in Washington and not Houston. Reports are that Washington was the leader in the clubhouse initially when Debo was in the trade block. Not surprising, since they were in the ears going after Brandon Ayuk last year. Houston was not. Houston's potentially in the running for Cup or guys like that. So in that case, I don't like Debo. I don't want Debo, but Debo could smash on a lot of those pop pass touchdowns, especially if the running back room stays kind of dusty the way it is. I'll have to end up with some of that because I want Jaden and I want Jaden stacks. The price right now, it's not comfortable, but if it gets any higher, are we good with Brock Purdy with Kittle?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
If it gets any higher, it's going to be tougher, and it probably does. But I have to, I have to play the news. And if Washington, they only traded a 5th, but that's because they're taking on all of his contract, which is like $28.5 million. If San Francisco would have eaten some of that money, they probably would have gotten a third round pick, but they're keeping all that money open to pay Brock Purdy. And it sounds like potentially extend Kittle to help with that effort. So at the end of the day, we saw Debo still have a pretty good, week in week 17. And yeah, if he's not coming off pneumonia and he does take care of his body, We've seen them be able to feed these short. I mean, Washington kind of was that. It was like feast on the short stuff, and Jaden makes
Yep.
magic deep. So Debo does figure to work well there. I'm trying to trust the sharp people that are like, no, this is a good landing spot, maybe one of the best landing spots. But I'm not as convinced as them that this is like their only big move at wide receiver. I think it makes a lot of sense to just keep adding weapons and guys. This is a team that could add Luther Burden. If he falls out of the first round. This is a team that could add Jalen Noel or Jalen Royals. Like, I don't think they're done, given that Olamide is a free agent, Diami Brown is a free
Yep.
agent. Like, I don't think they just re-sign those guys and then just feed Debo and Ertz is a free agent. So they have a rookie quarterback. Their GM knows just accumulate, and they've got money and they've got picks. So if they add weapons, that's where I'm worried about, like where Debo falls in that. But it probably is a pretty good landing spot for the horizontal rate and Jaden Daniels being so efficient.
Yeah, and the big point with Washington as well is that they got so much better offensive line play out of their team than they expected. Like, they only spent one draft pick on an offensive line player last year, I think, and it wasn't until like the 4th round. So it felt like an area of concern at this point last year. They ended up being far better. So that's when you can afford to go and take those shots on wide receiver. You can look at the teams where it's like, okay, let's just really surround somebody in the way that it's worked for Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and see if you can make it work there. So, I don't love Debo this year. He could do with losing some weight, but I don't want none of him either. We are about to be back on the clock with a 1-3-4-1. J.K. Dobbins, Trey Harris, Tucker Kraft, Stephon Diggs. I'll let you pick this one. Like, I'd be fine with Trey Harris.
Let's do some Trey Harris. His profile is definitely like more misses than hits, but he is so explosive and so efficient that, what if he's the outlier? And we talked about how at this point in the draft, opportunity cost isn't too much. And if you're asking me, a 31-year-old coming off an ACL who was already kind of declining outside of just running hot on touchdowns out of the slot, who may not be back in Houston, with how Houston's kind of talking about being potentially in the running for Godwin or Cup, taking over that slot role. And I look around the league and I wonder, who's got a slot opening? Debo just filled Washington's. Potentially Houston's going to fill theirs elsewhere. So I'm willing to take we're just going to load up on rookies in this class. And if we hit on 2 or 3, then that may be all we need with how we're building, considering we did start with Puka and AJ Brown. So really, we just need rookies to like way outperform some of these vets. And I expect that to happen. And at least with Trey Harris, we know he's playing wide receiver full time. But yeah, it's just like, what if he works out? What if Troy Franklin went to a team that didn't sandbag him for not being as good as a 26-year-old in practice, because that is an old man, So I'm keeping the dream alive for sure, because there's plenty of needs and it just takes one team.
Yeah, and Ferris making his point, with the success that the Ravens and Eagles had by an elite RB to prepare with their QB who runs, I think Washington should target a day 2 RB. I'd love to see it. We were big Brown Robinson fans last year, but he couldn't really get it going. He had a bunch of games over 70 yards, but rarely broke 100, really didn't get into the end zone as much as we'd want, didn't get involved in the passing game. I think that Austin Eckler, he's someone very easy to move on from financially if they wanted to. I had forgotten that it was a 2-year contract he'd signed, but he is there for now at least. And even if he's not, or even if he's just like playing a reduced role, it would be nice to see a rookie in there and just somebody with some real speed and juice outside of what they've got. But yeah, as the chat says, definitely rookie heavy so far.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of rookie class that, they could easily get a much more explosive running back to do more with less. We're coming up here, as expected, the quarterbacks continue to drop. It sounds like Christian Kirk, based on the GM, is not someone they're planning to cut. So Kirk feels like a solid value here to add to the receiver room.
Okay, yeah, I'd be good with that. I think I must have missed that one. I was kind of still expecting Christian Kirk to be gone. But it's like over these last few days, and that's why it's good to pay attention to the Coach Speak Index and all of those reports out there.
So the GM said, I wouldn't say that trading Christian Kirk is on the table. At this point in time, I can say that we are happy to have Christian. So it's not the most glowing thing, but it definitely sounds like, why would we cut weapons with a quarterback making that money if we don't have to? And it doesn't make sense. Like Christian
Yeah.
Kirk would get a pretty decent contract on the open market considering how thin it is. So with wide receivers, it makes sense to keep him in town considering Gabe Davis is the guy with the longer contract, but he's had back-to-back off seasons coming off of the same knee injury that he went into camp with. And so you're more worried about Gabe Davis than you are Christian Kirk coming off a collarbone injury.
Oh, yeah.
So despite the dead cap number and the savings, they don't really need the savings considering where they are as a franchise. It makes more sense with a new head coach to just have more weapons than not. I'd say the guy more likely to get cut right now is Evan Ingram because tight end position needs less to do more with. Brenton Strange, as Coach Speak Index has pointed out, got some really good coach speak from the GM and performed admirably. And Ingram's just way longer in the tooth and doing a whole lot less with the yak stuff that he used to. So if they're trying to save money, they'd save about the same amount of money cutting Ingram at a position where there's more depth in the draft and there's more depth in free agency with Jawan Johnson, Tyler Conklin, to name a couple, now that Tyler Higbee's not leaving the Rams.
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence over the years, these splits are a bit funky, but he's averaged 5 more PPR points per game with Christian Kirk on the field than without. Like, Christian Kirk isn't the most desirable player from pretty much any perspective when it comes to fantasy or real life NFL, but his game does work with Brian Thomas, and it does seem to have a rapport with Trevor Lawrence, so I'm good with that. We're back on the clock. Obviously, we've only got the one QB so far. Do you want to take a shot on Bryce, Tua, Anthony Richardson, JJ, or do you want to just solidify something else? I'll let you make the pick with 7 seconds.
I like Bryce here, considering his upside looked immense. It seems, they said he's our guy, he's the starter, and they re-signed Dalton to a backup quarterback contract. It makes the most sense for this organization to make the quarterback work. He's still on his rookie contract, so if they turn this thing around, they can actually load up and compete in a division that is, it's got the Saints and it's got, the Falcons rebuilding with their rookie quarterback and the Bucks keeping everyone at bay, full pun intended, but definitely with plenty of holes on defense to fill and some aging guys on offense. And at the end of the day, Bryce Young's mobility and his 5 touchdown performance in week 17 last year showed that this is a guy that was worthy of the first pick, and he's got some really nice fantasy upside. We've loaded up on rookies. If Adam Thielen doesn't return, or even if he does, Xavier Legette he did not have a good rookie season, and we've seen teams just hit the reset button after 1 year at both quarterback and at wide receiver. So as far as phantom stacks, as far as fantasy upside, and as far as offenses that could really outperform, I like Bryce and I like Carolina a lot. I think Carolina is a sneaky spot to get another rookie running back in the top 150, considering what this class is and what they just did last year with Brooks, and Brooks probably not playing 2025 along with Tank Dell. And Chuba Hubbard having it's like 4.5 to 5.5 million average per year with an out after year 2. So this makes a lot of sense for phantom stacks and upside. And I feel very secure that he's a guy that's going to be starting every week. And getting to really build on last year, I think is going to be huge for him in this offensive cohesion.
Yeah, and as you say, plenty of rookie wide receivers. I feel like they will go back because I still think that the question marks about Bryce Young are enough that they still want to make sure that they have all those answers on Bryce Young rather than worrying about their defense. I don't think there's any illusions for the Panthers that they're going to be winning this year. And taking Bryce where we did worked out nicely because several quarterbacks came off the board after us. You've kept making the point all draft season, as young as it is, that it's easy to get boxed out at quarterback. We saw one team's already got at least 4 quarterbacks. So, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. Do you feel an affinity for Anthony Richardson or JJ McCarthy? I'm definitely quite worried about Anthony Richardson. It feels like JJ McCarthy's ADP is being suppressed by the Sam Darnold situation, which will change very soon. You just want to get to the running backs.
I think we're gonna be happier with Stafford than we are with the potential bench risk in AR, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like a lot changes in a year. I'd be okay with Jerome Ford if that's your choice. I'd also be all right with Devin Neal if we wanted somebody who can give us some real explosive plays.
Oh yeah, let's take the dip on Neal. This is another perfect example of Neal's not a guy I would love taking over like Tank Bigsby or some of the quarterbacks, but over Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford at 150, sign me up. We can consider this dead, and it doesn't hurt our roster considering how he built. And if he's a big win because he's an overreaction at the combine and hits a great landing spot, then that's all that matters too.
Yeah, and I've just got to give a quick shout out to Rich. His rookie guide to be out in the next couple of weeks. He is 11,000 words into it already, writing up a huge amount of the players who are going to be fantasy relevant this year. All you got to do, hit the join button down below. I believe it's second tier available, so it costs you less than the price of a beer, less than the price of like a Big Mac meal, and you'll get Rich's rookie guide. It was unbelievable last year. Rich really is one of the smartest people when it comes to rookie prospects. Well worth signing up for that alone, and of course, much more other content. So check it out. Tyler, can you just recap the team for me quickly before this next pick?
Yes. Yeah, and also becoming a member, you get all the unfiltered access of ranks, takes, and some great grinding of news. You wanted the team read?
Hit me.
We got a 2-4-6-1 build for the audio listeners. Brock Purdy, Bryce Young at quarterback, running back, Kyron Williams, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Devin Neal. Loving this running back room. Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, Tet McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, Trey Harris, Christian Kirk at wide receiver, and holding it down for the underground at tight end, George Kittle, the one and the only.
Looks fun to me. We're kind of hitting that desperation tight end zone where it's like veterans with question marks about them. We've got the quarterbacks, which obviously Matthew Stafford stands out for us and would be a good one to lock in. Is that fair? Do you think that he's going to rise much now that he's locked in? Like, how much has he risen over the last week or so?
He was dropping to like the 180s and 190s whenever people weren't sure where he was going and if he was going to play, because they had really poor retirement rumors last year for both Kupp, McVay, or I guess the trio, and Stafford. So he was falling just because people didn't know who to stack him with. Maybe he ends up on a really bad team. He rose a little bit with the Raiders because there was excitement about like, ooh, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and whoever they want at 6. That's exciting. Genty, McMillan, whoever. And now he's kind of just settled back into like the 170s, 160s. I'd imagine he rises just simply because projections are going to come out. Stacking is going to pull him up a little bit. The only thing really keeping him down right now, I believe, is the fact that there was uncertainty. And his box score last year looks poor. But as I mentioned, you couldn't have asked for a worse run out for the Rams. Losing 4 of your offensive linemen going into week 1, not getting your first starter really back to week 7 or 6. Not having your star wide receiver Puka Nacua for the first 8 weeks, outside of half a game before he re-injured his bursa sack, and then losing Kupp for 4 weeks. So his touchdown numbers look paltry, but then when you look at, and then didn't have Higbee and newsflash, Parkinson and what was it? Dennis Allen were bad. Yeah. So I fully expect this offense to be able to have a lot more season-long upside with just a little bit more health and just more youth infusion, not having to rely on Demarcus Robinson to fill in at wide receiver 2. It should be a big boost for Stafford's touchdown numbers alone.
Yeah, Stafford last year had 10 games where he threw for 1 or 0 touchdowns, which that was the big problem for him fantasy-wise. He just didn't get the passing touchdowns. Obviously, he had those spike weeks in week 8 and 11 where he had 4 passing touchdowns. But so much of the early part of the season, it was a struggle. You can pass for yardage fine, but if you're not getting the touchdowns or if you're not adding a rushing element, it is always going to be very difficult for you. And from a best ball perspective, if there's no one on the field who you'd want to be stacked with, then it becomes very worthless quite quickly. So
yeah,
I think that there's room for a bounce back. I'm not sure I'll ever see Matthew Stafford as somebody that I want huge exposure to, but I feel pretty comfortable in him and just for Sean McVay offense, really. We're back on the clock. Jordan Whittington to add to that Ram stack, Isaac Guerrero, DJ Giddens, and Jalen Royals. Normally, I've been kind of pushing towards Jalen Royals and Jordan Whittington on these situations, but I'm okay with Isaac Guerrero if you like him here. I know we talked about him in one of our recent slow videos.
Yeah, he's another stack with Purdy. If they utilize him more, he's a bet against CMC. He's a bet against Jordan Mason. He's potentially, I mean, they might not replace Debo's role with one single person. I'd imagine that they split that up between Ricky Pearsall, Isaac Guerrero, Jacob Cowing, or a player to be named. If Ayuk struggles at all and CMC struggles at all, I think Guerrero has a lot of outs to just like gadget touches, standalone value. I think he and CMC work better together than Mason and CMC, considering that Isaac Guerrero did average. I believe his projections in season were like 2.5 receptions per game. That's valuable. CMC struggled in yards created after after reception or after receiving the handoff. That's somewhere Guerrero. He's a home run play waiting to happen. Shanahan loves utilizing that. Just durability was his main question. But whose story on San Francisco's offense isn't that outside of Brock Purdy? So it's a guy I'm loading up on as I fade CMC because I do not feel confident that a 30-year-old coming off Achilles tendonitis is something that magically goes away or fixes itself quickly. And we got the money stacks with Puka and with Kyron. I'm not sold that Winnington is anything more than their preferred third option at wide receiver. They tried to get BTJ last year, so moving on from Cup, I don't think that goes to Winnington specifically.
Yeah, and they try to trade up for Brock Bowers, so there was plenty going on there. Okay, so we are obviously one tight end so far. Harold Fannin, who I imagine is falling, we could take him here. I'd be okay. He performed how you'd kind of expect him. Jatavian Sanders for the stack would be the other tight end, I'd suggest.
Let's take Fannin. We know that RAS is important for elite tight ends, but it doesn't necessarily mean those tight ends are going to work out well year one. And it's a hard place to really project. And it's going to be very landing spot, dependent. So I'm comfortable taking a prospect who, from a production standpoint, looks very, very solid. And if he drops to like just the right team, then all wheels up. It seems like there's going to be a few tight end openings between Denver, the Jets, potentially Houston. Houston's trying to replace Dalton Schultz 3 different times in the last year. So there's a lot of nice landing spots that Fannin could end up in. This is a deep class. May as well take shots on goal.
How much Kyle Pitts have you drafted this offseason, Tyler?
Not a lot, because he didn't look like a good player. When you're a tweener and you end up getting relegated before the end of your rookie contract as a 8th overall pick to sub 40% snap share, and you're dropping passes, that's tough. He injured his knee. The explosion he used to have just isn't there as far as long speed and acceleration. We saw that just be gone last year. We saw him get relegated just because he's not as good of a blocker. He's not winning matchups versus cornerbacks. He's not out-bodying linebackers. That's a problem. And now we've gotten 2 separate reports in the last month that he's been on the trade block, and they're looking to move him. So now I'm like, where is he going to end up that's better than, the tight end one in Atlanta with a McVay disciple? So I've taken him maybe a handful of times max. It's just not a guy who you're going to stack him with, and what's the lookout. If he, God forbid, he ends up in Denver to be the Joker, then he's toast, because we just know the Joker role is where players are going to die.
I was thinking about it earlier today, and I was trying to imagine a good landing spot for Pitts, and I was trying to imagine what price Pitts would be at where I'd be okay with it. And at the minute, it's just like a player that I'd see like a 5 to 6% exposure to, just like hedging my bets, slightly above the safety blanket range, but geez, it doesn't feel amazing at all. Jatavian Sanders made it back around. Mike Gesicki, who potential free agent, potentially somebody who's going to climb up a bit if he re-signs with the Bengals. In terms of running backs, where we've only got 5 so far, we could take another in Nick Chubb, who is sitting just at 194 ADP. We'd get a little bit of volume on him. But is Brashard Smith the guy for you?
He played wide receiver in college. He lit up the combine. Why don't we add a little bit of youth juice to this old running back room? Maybe this is our Tyrone Tracy, of the class that we can actually draft in a little board this time around, since Tyrone Tracy was not in the player pool for last year's pre-draft contests. But I want to make sure that I wasn't loading up on Brashard Smith because I was worried he'd be this season's Dylan Laube slappy pick. But he had a really solid combine, and the wide receiver drills invite he got. If JJ is interested, if JJ Zacharias and other sharp folks are interested because he's a converted wide receiver, I want to be interested in round 17 where he could be a huge match, especially in this room where we've got a CMC handcuff, we've got 3 starting running backs who are veterans, 2 older in age. Who's gonna take over a role at this range in the draft, or just really make the most out of 12 touches. I like making the bet on Brashard as I haven't loaded up on him previously. I was trying to flatten out my rookie takes pre-combine because you don't want to be overweight on Ollie Gordon or whoever just might tank the draft capital before the draft.
Yeah, I very much can agree on that. Like, historical anomaly saying Chargers might be fun, but Pitts isn't a hardball player. I think that would be good. I think Greg Roman could scheme him as much as he possibly could. Offer Schneid saying Cincinnati's the only real nut landing spot for Pitts, but that's not likely. Yeah, the Bengals, they just don't really trade for players ever, do they? And even if he got there, then you start to get into a situation where it's like, how much volume can he earn when you've got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins who see so much? So you might get better spike weeks than we've had out of him, but I'm not sure I'd still have too much faith. And I think the price would go up if he landed in Cincinnati, probably by a round or 2. Like, do you think it'd be more than that, less than that?
I think we've seen mid players, Dalton Kincaid pulled up really high because they're attached to really good quarterbacks. Same thing's going to happen with Joe Burrow. He's got a 4th round ADP this season. I think that people will say, well, they acquired him, they're going to use him, yada yada. Cincinnati uses an arsenal of tight ends, and also it's a team they have just decided we are going to add 2 in the free agency period, 3 in the draft, and we're going to rotate them, and whoever works out, works out. So I wouldn't be excited about that landing spot at all, because if it was Pitts and Gesicki, and whoever else they add in the draft, they're just going to give it to whoever works out, and they might all just split, 30, 40% snaps and whatever. And yeah, if his passing down role is earn targets versus T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, I don't feel great about his odds, especially because Joe Burrow seems like a guy that he wants you to trust. And Gesicki's whole thing was, I will body out guys to get the ball. He did that really well last year. That's the one thing Pitts does not do well.
No, I love that point. Jatavian Sanders drops all the way down to here.
There you
go. It just makes too much sense at this point. He looked good before that kind of nasty injury to end the year, but it just works. I'm not fighting it on these kind of 3 QB, 3 tight end builds. I just think that in 20-round best ball, in early 20-round best ball, there's no reason to fade him, particularly when you're getting a stack like that. Michael's asking in the chat, another draft after this one. Tyler, what are you saying? I've got to get out of here after this one. I've shit to do, but Tyler?
I'm feeling in the groove, in the mood. Let's keep it rock and rolling with the second one. If the fine people are asking, who am I to say no and blue ball these fine degenerate sickos who are watching a fantasy football draft in March
3rd. What better time to draft? Has anyone got any kind of speculative thoughts on what we're going to see from Best Ball Mania? Because like that, it's not that long till we'll start getting the nuggets about prize structure. Do we think we see a return of a regular season prize? I was kind of surprised how many people wanted that back last year at various points, or to see just a little bit of something for the regular season. Obviously, they're always fighting pod size, but yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that total prize pool will stay pretty similar.
Yeah, I don't see huge changes coming. Maybe they try to implement a single big change, but they do seem to be trying to target, I don't know, market appeasing solutions for the main flagship contests. But the ones that they don't, they try to attack in these other that's what we saw, to kind of appease some of the regular season prize things. They gave us the marathon and they gave us the sprint. I wouldn't be surprised if those similar types of contests were rolled out again, just at different prize points to try to alleviate those concerns. I'd be kind of surprised if regular season prizes were added back, because I think the overwhelming majority were happy that payouts were flatter and it made more. I mean, I heard more. I'm willing to max BBM this year because if you made the finals, you at worst broke even. And that's
that's
huge.
Chad's point. Like, I think any contest where if you make the final and you break even is worth maxing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not as excited to max a contest that I could lose my total ass on. That's already hard enough to win. If I make the finals and I lose half my money, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, so we're back up on the clock. Obviously, it's getting pretty grim here. Demarcus Robinson could make some sense for the Rams stack. Jalen Polk, somebody we talked about last week. Tez Johnson, I imagine he's not going to get drafted in a lot of these the rest of the way. Anybody else you want to make a case for that you've been clicking a lot late? 2, 1.
Let's do Slayton here. 28-year-old free agent who's been a pretty good deep ball specialist and had some good yards after the catch. His ball tracking is just really good. I'm not sure that either Robinson or Tutu return to the Rams is my main concern. It's sure I haven't. Jordan Rodriguez hasn't mentioned anything about those two returning. The two players she said are not going anywhere.
Volumes
are back. Yeah, the fact that I've heard zero about DeMarcus Robinson or Tutu is concerning for their odds to end back up there. And then it's like, well, where are they going to end up?
Just housekeeping. It's coming up to 11 o'clock here, but because Monday's just a painful day for me. I do some podcast editing for Fantasy Pros, and I've still got one show to put to bed before I put myself to bed. But yeah, it's Mondays are fun, but a little bit too busy. We got Meg from Fanspeak, another one of our favorite podcasters out here. Hey guys, I'm really interested in maximum marathon this year and not as much BBM. Meg, very much one of the sharp people who's concentrating a lot on contest selection.
Hard to blame you. It's hard to make the finals, as off the Schneid and mentions. And then when you do make the finals, last year was like, hey, you're breaking even if you max, which is like, well, that's pretty nice. But it's also tough to be like, I made the finals, something I'm expected to do once every 10 years, and I broke even. That's tough too.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. I mean, you just want to sweat. Like, above all else, like if you can get to the Sunday games, if you're not dead after the Thursday night football and you've got any kind of sweat at that point, at any point where you feel that you could be winning 5 figures, I think that's the best ball experience that we're all after, isn't it? Like, I had one not this year, but last year where going through to about the second set of games on FFPC, I was 2 points back from 100 grand. And you kind of think, okay, this might be real. And then, of course, you get a couple of plays and it all changes. But yeah, I mean, it's just all comes down to about week 17, the last games, and having something to enjoy. So, in speaking of something to enjoy, round 20, one last pick. I'd be leaning to wide receiver for a 3-6-8-3. That's wide receivers, all we've got in the queue. Devon Veely, Ray McLeod, Caden Prever, Ty Felton, Ricky White, Kyle Williams, and Nick Nash. You know this area of the draft better than I do at this point of the offseason. I don't have any particular takes on any of the rookies. Is there any of the veterans or guys, second-year player in Devon Veely's case that you'd take over the rookies?
Vele feels interesting, but a little safe. I think we took good shots on the rookies, especially Tet and Igbuka, so I'm not too worried. So at this point, I want just someone that's an absolute smash. I've seen a lot of people talking about Ricky White, Caden Prather. They all kind of go in the same spot. So I'm leaning, and Ray seems so boring and fragile. So
Yeah.
I'd say let's take a shot on a rookie. Out of these guys, it's anybody's game. I don't know. All right, I'm seeing Kyle Williams is the guy. I want to say that Marcus Mosher also on Twitter, he said, he's a day 3 guy, but he's extremely interesting, had a really solid Senior Bowl and Combine. I talked with Spags over on Splash Play, highly recommend him as well for some of the early work. And he said, it's not a guy I'd load up on. He's got some interesting things, but he also might have a, prospect profile that's more bust than boom. That said, we expect these guys to go really late. It's 20th round. If he does get an opportunity, he's got some really interesting things to bring to the table. And it's not a rookie we've taken a lot in these contests.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure to mix them up because you don't want to be overweight on one guy this early in the season.
Absolutely. Tyler, wax lyrical and give us the recap of the roster, would you?
I won't wax lyrical until you're gone because, like I said, it's late for you. But we did end up with a 3-6-8-3 build. Quarterback, Brock Purdy, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford. At running back, Kyron Williams, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Devin Neal, Isaac Garindo, and Brashard Smith. Wide receiver, Puka Nakua, A.J. Brown, Tech McMillan, Egbuka, Trey Harris, Christian Kirk, Darius Slayton, Kyle Williams. And at tight end, George Kittle, Harold Fannin Jr., and Jatavian Sanders. Some really nice stacks, really nice balance. This is one of the better rosters. I feel like really good. Like we sweated none. We got people we wanted. We got players we like. I feel great about this.
Do you feel like we possibly clicked one too many rookies?
I don't, because we saw last year's winner have 10 on his roster. Second place only had 1. And I think at this point in the contest, we've gotten combine information. We have Senior Bowl information. We have mock draft projected draft capital. We've got rumors swirling. And I think we targeted the right types of rookies in the right spots. Truly, I think we managed that really well. I don't think we loaded up on the strength of the strength and the depth where we needed to, and the risky ones we took, a la Trey Harris, Kyle Williams. We did so knowingly and at, I think, very, very inarguable costs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like, not every draft are you going to want to be at 7-8 rookies, but there wasn't a point where I felt that taking a rookie was being done just for the sake of taking a rookie. It felt like we were doing it because it was the smart selection and it worked with our roster at that point. And if you can build smart teams, that's always somewhere where I would like to go. Tyler, I'm going to get out of here. Let's say work to do, things to do, 11 p.m. over here, but always good hanging out with you, man. We've got videos coming from our slow drafts over the next few days. Rich has got Dynasty content on the way. Everyone else, appreciate you all hanging out and stick around as Tyler gets into it. See you later, everyone.
Later, Tom. Have a good one. All right, folks, you left with me. Let's get a second one ripping and rocking. Yeah, also good notes that Kyle Williams, touchdown machine. Hard to hate a guy who is a touchdown hog. I do like Ty Felton. We had friend of the channel, Fantasy Pancake, had a nice video on him. I believe RotoViz had him listed as an interesting rookie late in drafts. I think Davis Maddock noted this morning on stream, not the biggest producer, but kind of an analytics darling as far as some of the efficiency metrics, and had a really good combine. So, definitely a guy I'm taking shots on and could be interesting as a day 3 guy. And we've seen day 3 guys matter. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4th round pick. Romeo Dobbs, 4th round pick. Both guys had solid year 1 and year 2 contributions at minimum in the best ball streets. And we know that rookies are more likely to get opportunities late in the season, which is the real focus there. We don't want to draft guys who, give us a lot of early season production, but then becomes effectively dead roster spots or zeros late in the season when all the money is in the playoffs. We just mentioned best ball mania structure, week 17. It's tough to see, get to week 17 and then you're not catapulting up the leaderboards because you're saddled with a bunch of veterans that aren't really giving you as much work late. So if you want to jump into this big board, we got 7 more spots. I'll let the good people know we are still going live. Let's see. Live solo for draft number 2. So yeah, I've been taking Ty Felton for a couple weeks, but want to make sure to, change up the rookies we're taking. Exactly. Historical anomalies. And then best ball in general. It's the odds to win, the odds to make the finals, the playoff advancement. It's tough. The mid to high stakes where you're like 2 of 6, 3 of 10, 4 of 8. Small finals, those are much nicer, but you've got the higher entry points. So that's what makes it tough, for some folks for the bankroll. And with that, you need to understand that, you're playing a game you're likely to lose, so play like you're going to win. And that includes pushing your chips in on the right types of bets, the right kind of constructions. And as Meg notes, contest selection is everything. Also, Michael Stockton, you were in the 1 hole. We're waiting for 1 more to fill. Let me do a quick review of your team since you were here in chat. You're in the 1 hole. So you built a 2-6-8-4. I don't love taking 4 tight ends, but I'm sure when I see it, it's because you took a lot late, I hope. Joe Burrow, Derek Carr at quarterback. So definitely pushing the envelope a little thin there. But like we mentioned, if Derek Carr is the starter all season long, and this offense is healthier and more efficient, and the bye weeks don't overlap, and Joe Burrow pays off ADP, you could be rocking and rolling. I prefer the 3 quarterbacks at this point in the season because of bye weeks do hurt your advancement by the most of any position overlap, but as well as 3 full rounds of playoffs, the full gauntlet, being able to hit on 3 different stacks, pretty big for getting through and threading the needle. Joe Mixon, Tyron Tracy, Tank Bigsby, Rashad Wright, Bishal Tootin, and Justice Hill. I like the running backs. I like the mix up there. I like Justice Hill more than Tom does. But I guess scoring 50-yard touchdowns on pop passes just isn't much fun. Jamar Chase, McLaurin, DJ Moore, Jaden Reed, Rashid Shaheed, Rashad Bateman, Troy Franklin, and Calvin Austin. People clicking Calvin Austin, I don't think it's the worst click in the world. He's been pretty efficient yak-wise. And then Kraft, Otten, Komet, and Jawan. I don't think you needed Jawan there. He might be back in New Orleans, but there's some smoke that he's picked up by Denver as an ex-Saints guy, since they do have an opening for tight end, and we've seen Denver utilize under Sean Payton multiple tight ends. And then that kind of hurt your flexibility a little bit. Probably would have preferred a quarterback or wide receiver with that selection, but I don't think it's terrible. I think of all the positions, I wouldn't go overboard at tight end. I feel much more comfortable with 2 tight ends than 4, just given how low scoring it is. And this has become a friends and family stream draft with all the folks, which just means I'm going to get none of the value. And also Michael Stockton getting back-to-back influencer 101 one holes. And so to change that up, he's going Bijan Robinson at the 1. So this is an interesting draft. We see Bijan, Jamar Chase, and Puka Nacua going 1, 2, 3. Justin Jefferson going over Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs at the 4. Barkley falling to the 5. Gotta imagine 5 holes pretty stoked about that. And off the schneid on the turn at the 12 means I will have to be very comfortable losing the guys I would like coming back to me. Chad saying he had 5 BBM semi teams, got 0 through, had 1 big board team and made it variance so big. Yeah, exactly. The playoff variance is a brutal, brutal mistress. Going to be happy with any of these guys at wide receiver here at the 10 hole, drafting here on stream. If you're here and you haven't already dropped a like, please do so. Every like helps the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Super helpful. We're almost to 3,500 subs. Very excited for that as we push to 4,000. I'm in Tom's ear about what we can do to celebrate. Maybe like it with a giveaway or something. I'm going to take Neighbors here. I love BTJ. So I'm just going to make sure I'm not underweight Malik Neighbors in the first round, especially as I can pretty confidently stack him with Cam Ward, which means I think he's going to continue to be a high variance fantasy player. But his spike weeks might be even better considering that Cam Ward's deep ball is good. I know Rich, Dynasty Island was agreeing with that kind of sentiment in our Discord, which is, again, if you're not a member, it's $1 a month for the lowest tier. The silver and gold tier gets you access to the Discord and the rankings and the rookie guide, I believe. Guys, I cannot tell you how good it is. We're going to take Bowers here at the 15. Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers is our starting picks. Become a member of the Fantasy Sanctuary. It's a lot of value in Discord. It's a lot of value in start sits, in season, best ball ranks. As Tom mentioned, he's going to be cranking out here soon. You'll get all of my thoughts as well, whether you find that valuable or not. I try to grind and share all of the news as early as possible, as often as possible, that's happening, all the health stuff, all that good stuff behind the paywall of the Discord, as well as the premium content like the rookie guide, which, Rich's rookie guide, it's so labor intensive. Filmed, he watches the film takes, goes to his model, goes to the data, tries to combine the two together, isn't afraid to be on an island, no pun intended, where it makes sense. So a lot of valuable insight I don't think there's a better bang for your buck in the industry. So become a member. Highly suggest that. We're hosting a members only get together in the UK, and I am planning on flying across the pond to attend that. All right, let's see. Meg saying she wants to be an advance rate snob again. I mean, it's hard to advance rate is good. It is undeniably good. It is good to advance more teams because if variance is bad, you'd like as many shots on goal. You'd just like to not optimize advance rate at the expense of well-constructed teams for the final and for the playoffs. But the best you can really do there is just not overloading one position, not underloading position. Even then, you got to get lucky with how guys hit, how guys go, as well as stacks. Stacks are good for the channel. Yeah, so we see you, Meg. Meg starting off very robust with a nice H-hand slip to pair with Jameer Gibbs slip at 7. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Gibbs H-hand combos at this point. At least I think it's 40. We're drafting the big board, $10 entry, $2 million total prizes, $250K to first. It is 43% filled. I don't think you're getting a lot of H-hand and Gibbs combos in here. And people naming all of the dog contests that they enjoy. I do enjoy a lot of the other stuff. And like Historical Anomalies says, you can't get this value anywhere else. And thank you so much, Historical Anomalies, for gifting a membership. Going to Chad Candles. What a shout. And Chad also streaming big boards. And I believe BPM's in the once that season starts up on his channel. So thank you, Historical Anomalies, and welcome to the Sanctuary. Chad, sync up your Discord, hop in there, get rolling. It's also fun to be a part of a Discord as an American user, where you log in and everyone's been talking for hours because they're awake over in UK, and a couple of Australian members. Shout out to the lovely folks in the Fantasy Sanctuary. So if you're someone that likes to wake up to discourse and memes and insights and dynasty takes and best ball takes, well, you can wake up at 7 a.m. and there's loads to catch up on all the channels, and then you're giving all your stuff as people are winding down their days. So it's kind of fun to time those things. Dads, Brads, and Chads. There you go. Well, there you go, Chad. Oh, contest selection. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I would love to target more. I did last year, and I plan to do so this year. Target more concentrated volume at some of the better advance rates that are not as brutal, that reward, sound, sharp drafting, not as much lottery, luck of the draw. If I think I'm a good drafter and if I think I'm a good portfolio manager, which I definitely have my strengths and my weaknesses, as we all do. Coming up here on the third round, Bucky Irving dropping to Megan. So she's starting triple running back, but hard to say no to that. Likely building a 4 running back room if I had to guess. She's a sharp lady. She knows how to draft a good hyper fragile team. Josh Allen falling to me at the 310. I'm not really interested. This is a bit of a room where I don't want to fall too far behind at wide receiver. There's some smoke that Tet falls. I'm going to go ahead and just take the bet that Tet is still a top 10, top 12 type player going to a very good offense and a good landing spot. Drake London-esque, big body red zone. Don't mind that at all. I know. Gibbs, H-hand, and Bucky now. Just gotta make sure to pad those receivers out. Yes, Historical Anomalies. We do have to prove that not all Americans. Hashtag not my American. Bindles, don't we all like to wake up to? I mean, ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? Discourse and intercourse. I only promise to try. We only ask that you try. So who are you, for the folks that are drafting in these early draft contests, whether it's underdog drafters, who are you absolutely trying to catch up on after the combine? Who are you too light on? Is it Bajal Tootin? Is it RJ Harvey? Is it DJ Giddens? Is it Royals? Is it Noel? Who are you feeling like you fell too far behind with? And then who are you feeling like you absolutely need more of? I don't have a ton of Jaden teams. James Cook falls here, though. Somewhat tempting at the I'm going to do Jaden. I haven't built out a lot of Jaden teams. I'd like to build out more Jaden teams. So we go Jaden here at a 1-0-2-1 build. Daniels at quarterback, Malik Neighbors, Tet McMillan at wide receiver, Brock Bowers at tight end. No running backs. Not shocking for teams that I tend to build, but I do think the pockets in the old dead zone fill out nicely with some of the vets I like. All right, so chat is starting to talk about folks that they need to load up on, and I'm interested for the folks watching back. I know some of you already did some early dynasty rookie drafts, and some of you were in the throes of those, and some of y'all are just prepping for that. So, who really surprised you? Would really be interested in the comments. Who really wowed you the most? Who were you most skeptical on? A lot of people skeptical about Matthew Golden's 40 time, but some smoke about could be the wide receiver one. And folks, we have seen weird stuff before. Henry Ruggs went over Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb not so long ago, so maybe not so crazy. Oh, yes. Doan's asking about Michael Mayer. So it sounds like the Raiders are very interested in trading Mayer. Makes sense. They want to make Brock Bowers the full-time tight end, most likely. They don't need two tight ends to do so. They need all the draft capital they can get to fill things out. And he was a pretty good prospect. So I like taking him in the 20th. I like taking him over probably guys like, I mean, some of the folks aren't going to like this, but I think he's probably a better take than Theo Johnson. I think any team that does trade for him is going to plan to utilize him. He has good blocking. He has good receiving. He was ranked above McBride, if I recall correctly, in his draft class. So, and there's plenty of openings that make sense for him. And this rookie class is deep, but it may not be impactful year one. And he is coming into his third season. We've seen tight end breakouts happen weirdly. So landing spot dependent, but definitely someone I'm interested in. I don't want to get too over my skis though, because someone could just view him as like, hey, we need tight end depth, and he makes a lot of sense. If he ends up in San Francisco, I don't know that he's making a lot of fantasy impact there as just like a really healthy blocker who, is a trusted outlet there. All right. Looks like a lot of folks saying Matthew Golden is a guy they're light on. I think I'm decently okay with it, given that just the price and the range he went. I was willing to take him over Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp most times. But yeah, definitely someone that is probably going to shoot up the board a little bit more than maybe he should. Off the Schneid saying Giddens, Harvey, and Kyle Williams. So DJ Giddens and RJ Harvey, the running backs, and then wide receiver Kyle Williams. He'll pick off more Golden and Burden, but nothing crazy. I've been pretty cool on Burden ever since the comps that some of the data folks released, and then some of the concerns about his, mock drafts had him falling out of the first round before the combine. So it's someone that we I kind of eased up off of going into this week. Das Brook, who said he hit the RBs pretty hard way early. Yeah, and that made sense. The draft class looked good. All right, let's see. So it looks like Omario Hampton went at 52. Love that. Ahmed Kamara goes early. Travion goes right in front of me. Here at the 5'10". I'm tempted to go Cortland Sutton with Bo Nix. Stands out. We'll go Kenneth Walker. I've been taking quite a bit of him. The coach speak is really strong. The usage in the pass game was pretty strong. I don't know that I want to be too overweight on him, given that Charbonnet has proven to be someone that performed better down and down out, but the offensive line could be improved. He specifically was mentioned as someone that they wanted to be more focused on involving. Health is kind of really the issue. I think he's not played more than 11 games the last 2 or 3 years, but we've seen his spike weeks be pretty solid. He's not my most comfy anchor, but he makes sense there in that spot, I think. And yeah, hold on, I have your name. Is it Steve? Damn it, where'd you go? All right, I saw your thing. Sounds like there's a potential overlap, but yeah, after the combine is the best time to draft vets, in my opinion. Bags are already packed on the rookies. Better to get the values on the vets now than the rookies are pushed up. I think in some cases for sure. It's also a good time to buy the rookies that may have been overpriced, Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatterbo, Devin Neal, as they drop. And you're able to kind of build smarter within them. So running the channel off the schneid, Waddle Laporte at the turn, waiting on Shilly to pick before we make our next selection. We have a decision here to make. I know where I'm leaning. I would like to add Juwan Jennings to this team. I want to make sure my Jennings teams are not all the same. And I think his ADP deserves to move up as well now that Debo's gone. And I want to pull up these stats, share with the fine folks. As let's see. Shared a nice stat. So, and I retweeted this on my timeline, but for those that don't have Twitter or didn't see this, and I'll go find the account here in a sec to attribute correctly, but last year's total target share, all their sample sizes included, Juwan Jennings led the team handily at 28.8% target share, especially as he went from just being a slot-only player to be outside-inside versatility, with Pearsall being at the lowest at 17%, and then also led the team in yards per route run at 2.5. Ayuk dropped from a 3.0 yards per route run, I believe. He was over 3, I believe, last year, down to 1.9. Pearsall down at 1.5. So as far as talent, it seems like the team got a really good value in a 27-year-old coming off a playoff breakout in Juwan Jennings. They likely restructure him. Is maybe the tea leaves. So as far as wide receivers, I feel really good about that. I feel way worse about Cleveland Browns, given that Kirk Cousins may not leave. Seems like Atlanta is not willing to move off of him. They were very serious about wanting solid quarterbacks in their quarterback room. Should anything happen, teams are not convinced that they trade or cut him. And if they do, it's going to have to be for the right price. And I don't know many teams are going to be willing to trade for Kirk Cousins that, coming off that Achilles, coming off maybe a shoulder injury, but just looked kind of bad. I'm not sure he leaves Atlanta this year. So that means, and now that, Matthew Stafford's off the table, the Giants trading up to 1 to draft Cam Ward seems like all the smoke, which was the best case scenario for Cleveland if Tennessee took, Carter or Hunter at 1. So now it's Sanders, who teams are not sold on, kind of like Teddy Bridgewater-esque traits, but just way worse sack taking, which we know is, a killer at the NFL level. And they can't really afford to pay anyone really, really good. I think they're out of the Darnold sweepstakes, for instance. So now all of a sudden, and Derek Carr may not be leaving New Orleans. So who can the Browns bring in? That makes me very worried for guys like Jerry Jeudy. And then George Pickens, I'm going to have a tough time taking George Pickens, especially as my wide receiver 3. As someone the team actively tried to add Sutton and Ayuk as X receivers to this team, who punished him for kind of taking plays off and not putting all of his effort in, and actively benched him in games. And Arthur Smith offense that just doesn't funnel targets to any one player, rotates guys. I don't love Pickens. Godwin, I like in a vacuum, but there's a chance he returns to the Bucs, and we don't know the severity of his injury. I've talked about that. Especially being over 30 years old, there's a potential where it's nothing. There's a potential that it's pretty bad. And then Debo probably should have taken there to pair with Jaden Daniels, but I just said in our first draft, he's not my favorite stack. So I'll take some shots on rookies and hope to get a phantom stack out of Jaden Daniels there. Yeah, Arizona Mountain Man saying a lot of rookie hungry folks in these drafts. And then, the year 2 guys. I just think bad year 2 guys, not a bad thing to be picky. That said, Quentin Johnson showed us all that, you can have a bad rookie season and still, we're going to take Jacoby Myers here as our wide receiver 4. You can have a bad rookie year, but if you get new coaching staff that could use you better, could definitely bail you out. Going St. Judkins is an auto click for him in this range. He's got all the tools to be a monster producer. Yeah, he and Travion definitely seemed Like pick your choice of really explosive. Oh, off the schneid tried to flip Jennings for Laporta, but missed it. Sad face. Oh, tough. He tried to stop the clock. And if you did that, I would have probably ended up with Debo. So I can't wait to revisit this draft and see if that saved or hurt us both. Yeah, that's the thing too, is like Penix looked pretty good against the worst defense in the league last year against Carolina. He looked like he was making all the throws and hitting all the things. That said, we know that he performed really good when a clean pocket in college, seemingly the same thing in NFL. He did make some big boy throws with pressure in his face, but we're talking about like what, 3-4 games. I wouldn't be rushing to be without solid depth either. I haven't had a lot of Jalen McMillan, and yet here he is, a few picks after ADP in the 8th round. I'm happy to add him. If Godwin doesn't return, there's a really nice ability for him to hit. His yards per route run, his target share weren't the most exciting things in the world, but this Bucs offense is one that we do want to invest in. So I'm happy to take a guy after ADP to play with combos. If I'm going to fade a guy, I'd rather take him when he's a little bit cheaper. Hard to be mad about that. And then even if Godwin returns, wide receiver 3, who, fairly touchdown dependent, but he was getting shots deep and short if Mike Evans misses time. The thing about it is he's more of like a Mike Evans contingent because they didn't really use McMillan in the slot very much, where he kind of performs better. So regardless if Godwin returns or not, I don't know that they cede the role of Godwin wholly to McMillan, which is the reason why I'm not super high on him. But year 2 guy connected to a really good offense. I don't want to have none. And I know you mentioned, the Adams to Wicks comps going into last year from the coaching staff themselves were pretty high. And much like Adams, he had a really, really poor early season with drops and with mental issues. That said, it seemed like they were interested in going after this Seattle Seahawks DK Metcalf, who is not for sale once again. Teams drooling at the mouth at adding the star freak athlete X receiver and being told no, but they tried. So I don't know how much Wicks I want to have, because despite them saying they don't want a true wide receiver 1, they just tried to get one, and they could easily add to this receiver room because Christian Watson expected to miss a lot of next year. That's a great question. I don't know. When did they release it last year? I don't remember. And I don't remember because I didn't draft many, because it might be the fastest. The rookies and sophomores draft on Underdog might be the fastest filling contest in all of Underdog, like insanely fast fill. Olaf, welcome. What's up? Welcome to the chat. Chad asking, is Roman Wilson live to do anything this year? God, I don't think so. I'm sure in year 2 models, he's going to look pretty bad. And Arthur Smith is not exactly an offense that you invest, capital at wide receiver. He was effectively benched and not counted on at all after missing time mentally, struggling in camp, and then physically with, I believe, the hamstring. I put his odds. He might be one of the worst year 2 receivers, just from the standpoint of like coaching doghouse. If there was a new OC like there is in New England, like a new coaching staff, there might be a better chance. I'm worried about Roman Wilson. Puka is also, Terrence Charles saying Puka is his wide receiver 1. Speak on that, brother. Wow. So like you'd take him straight up over Jamar Chase? Is that what you're saying? Bold. Extremely bold. What do we want to do here? I think we're going to take J.K. Dobbins here as our running back 2. I'm okay with that. No worries. I can't tell. Does he know the magic trick? Here's the magic trick, guys. If you want to freeze the clock, you gotta have the queue midway player swap, and it gives you like an extra couple seconds because it goes, I don't know who you want. So people try to do the quick flip, and if you're trying to like, it's not going to give it to you. But if you're kind of like canoodling it, kind of like getting up in there, then you can freeze frame. Thad saying Penix is Thad approved. That goes a long way. I think he made all the right throws. I think it's less about doubting him. He's a super senior prospect. They took him at 8. I think it's far more likely that it's about, geez, guys. I was thinking about handcucking the Seattle backfield for pretty cheap, but if you're gonna give me Tyler Warren, 11 picks past ADP to kind of be done here with tight end. And Tyler Warren's a guy I'm kind of light on. Not as good of a prospect as Brock Bowers, but he's potentially going top 10. And that's really damn strong. And if he goes to an offense that has utilized tight ends in an interesting way, he's been kind of connected to Sean Payton as like a new Taysom because he does have rushing and jet sweep upside. That's a nut landing spot. Like, you're drafting Taysom in the top 3 rounds at tight end if he's healthy, right? Like we were drafting him in the top 15 picks in dailies last year before injury. So I mean, if you're gonna give me cheap Warren, I'm gonna take him. And I'm done at tight end. I feel great about that. Let's see. Catching up on chat. Yeah, I don't know if we'll get the news that early though, because Godwin, for those that might have missed it, Godwin did extend his contract window to give them more time to negotiate. But you're right. We get most of the news during tampering. Meg chiming in that rookies and sophomores is usually early to mid-March, so it could be dropping at any point. Yeah, historical. I do believe it drops before the draft. I don't. What am I? I'm just. This username is impossible, and I don't want to dox you. So, Sun says feels good to continue. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I think I was into Wicks in the 120s, 130s last year. I wasn't into him in the 100s and 90s. And I know drops aren't the stickiest thing in the world. That wasn't his only issue. But I feel like with Tucker Kraft breaking out, it kind of takes away some of the yak stuff that Wicks was doing. I think he's fine. What is Wicks' price? In these early pre-draft contests, Wicks is 160. So I mean, it's fine. I'd prioritize him in. I would prioritize him in stacks, but I don't know. Sorry, guys, bear with me. It's been a long day of talking at return to office, and also, I live in Houston. It's perpetually pollen season, and these allergies are murdering me. So if I sound like ass, that's my bad. No, I know Schneid, you weren't taking him, but I believe Shilly was in a really nice spot to take either Warren and Kelsey. Went Kelsey. I was willing to take Kelsey there, be done with tight end as well. Now that he's not retiring and I don't have to risk it, I think 60 to 75% with what he showed is fine. I just wasn't willing to take him when he could be a 0. But yeah, feel free to give me the rookie. All right. Wow. DeAndre Swift coming all the way back around to 130. I think this might just, I mean, you're not supposed to do this, right? You're not supposed to take the all fade team, but DeAndre Swift, welcome to the team. I think it's a very real chance that they draft and add to the running back room, and Swift could be a trade candidate. Go somewhere else. Washington, I think, would be a good fit if they want to just add veterans they trust and draft along the D-line and the O-line, which make a lot of sense for their needs. All right, Terrence Charles, who said Puka Nacua is his wide receiver 1, is saying he expects regression for Chase, which is fair. If Higgins comes back and is healthy all season long, it definitely takes away from some of the ceiling. Puka will indeed be a target hog. And yeah, enlightened OC head coach with less target count. Definitely less target competition right now. Yeah, I mean, if Puka was healthy all year, he'd be drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson, I suppose. That is my real take. What you laughing at, Thad? I don't remember what I said. I don't see Love is interesting. I don't know how much regression he's due for, because it does seem that ever since they found the running back that they like, they're just going to run things through him. They have no problem using him on easy dump offs, and the run game was very efficient at like 5-8 yards a clip. So I think Love's ceiling's a little lower because they have a lot of faith in the run game. So that's a little bit of my trepidation. Trepidation, great word, by the way. Gonna take Trey Benson here, talked up as from the GM and the head coach, is having a really strong finish this season. We kind of saw that as he was more efficient and utilized more. I love James Conner a lot. Petzig run game much better than the pass game. Mentioning that they hope he continues to ascend, and they have 2 starting running backs. So as far as handcuffs, those are great comments to make. He's arbitrage Zach Charbonnet at this point. Draft capital was pretty strong. We liked him as a prospect. Anything happens to Connor, Benson filled in pretty well. And he's got a little bit of standalone volume because they'll give him, a few touches a game. And we've seen Algier have usable weeks like that. But as far as handcuffs, I think his price is a little cheap potentially. So loading up on Trey after back-to-back, months of strong comments from the coaching staff and the GM. So yeah, as far as to wrap up the Green Bay point, I'm a little worried that Green Bay is in their heavy run game phase era with kind of a weak defense and a lack of a dominant. They mentioned this, that they want more consistency out of the wide receivers in the pass game. They had a lot of explosion. They want more consistency, but they kind of found that in feeding Tucker, Jacobs, and Wicks when he could catch the ball in these like low ADOT stuff. Love's kind of streaky in his accuracy. We've seen that now over 2 years. So I don't know how much regression he's due for without a big upgrade at the receiving game, because it seems like they kind of just want consistency down in, down out. Sound like ass, smell like ass, taste like ass. I sound like ass. I smell great. Thank you very much. And I taste like freshly washed ass, which is pretty good, in my opinion. Me getting roasted or me roasting? Because maybe. Bayshell at 12. Off the Schneid getting his rookies. Let's look at the friends in the chat. King of Kings, friend of the Fanspeak channel. Let's see, building out Detroit. Like his build so far. Megan, after starting 3 running backs, goes Rome, Devontae, Godwin, Baker, Caleb, Bateman, Mims. Takes the detour for Scatabo. She just can't resist. And then a Stephon drop, which solid. I mean, this team needing that potential veteran presence as far as contributor in Stephon Diggs. I like the price there. Let's see. Stockton out of the 1 hole, going Bijan, Jacobs, Moore, Flowers, Mixon, Reed, Burden, Bow, Love, Tucker. Getting the full Green Bay stack. That's fun. That's nice. Including Romeo Dobbs, and then Mountain Man, Chase, Jason, Wilson, Kittle, Burrow, Demont, Jalen, Travis, Najee, Kirk. I think Kirk's a great value. Getting there with Trevor is nice. Doesn't risk it for the biscuit. Takes Gino to stack with JSN. Some nice builds. No one's afraid to just reach and complete their stacks or get the guys. Gotta love it. I know Thad loves that. Go get your guys, right, Thad? All right, we're on the board here. We mentioned we want Cam Ward for our Malik Neighbors stacks. We've got the rookie quarterback, Malik Neighbors. Best ball on call. Welcome to the stream. Thank you. Yeah. I think we're doing great with viewership. If you haven't already hit the like button, please hit the like. Every little bit helps. On our road to 3,500 subs. And like I mentioned, if you are interested, for like $1 a month, you can become a member of the channel, and every level gives you supreme access to some of the best bang for your buck. And I know all about bangs and bucks in the industry for ranks, for advice, start setting the season, and just one of the best, most wholesome Discords. And I'm in a shitload of Discord servers, by the way, way too many. Started leaving some this last weekend. It was obnoxiously anxiety inducing to log in. But yes, I think Stroud is the guy that stands out with a new OC. We don't know a lot about him, but we heard that they want to build through the O line and along the D line. They want to keep Stroud clean, and they want to focus on the run game and explosive passes. Love me some Cam. I mean, we said it. We can't mess around, right? I might take Rico here at 159 as running back 5. There's a very real chance Dallas doesn't do a whole lot at running back because they can't afford to. I don't love it though. Fields is nice. That's a bummer. Was hoping to get him. I think we're going to go Algier. I think he's an elite handcuff on a potentially really strong offense. And I feel really good continuing to push running back there with Algier. Benson and Algier kind of similar plays with similar upsides, I believe, just with much cheaper price. I'm worried about Rico as a 26, 27-year-old undrafted free agent who or late round pick. I don't remember if he was undrafted or not, but now he's a free agent, potentially returning to the Cowboys, but he was relegated a couple times and they split the roll up a lot. So hard to get a read on how they're going to utilize that. Don't love the Dylan Sampson thing or Ollie Gordon at cost. Garwendo stuck out there to add with, my Jennings, but I have so much of him, feels like, I don't want to make too many of the similar teams of Jennings and Garwendo there. So Algier felt like a fine pick. I'm going to like the quarterback and running backs to come around. And like we mentioned, we're done at tight end. So through 14 rounds, 2-5-5-2 build, perfectly balanced as all things should be. Jaden Daniels, Cam Ward at quarterback, running back, Ken Walker, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Trey Benson, Tyler Algier. I do not have a running back room like this yet through like 70 big boards, so happy to have a little bit of different texture there. At wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Ted McMillan, Juwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers, and Jalen McMillan. And then at tight end, Big Cock, Brock Bowers, and this generation's Taysom Hill, Tyler Warren. Great name, great face. Wish he would have ran at the combine. Would have been fun. Hey, yeah, bubber. Let's see. Welcome back, Chaito. Meg chiming in that she thinks Debo fits the system great. And they didn't have to give him money. No, it makes sense. They have the money to spend, save the draft capital, spend the money. Absolutely. Especially for an older guy. If they want to make him a 1-year rental at $28 million, so be it, right? Commies are so much fun. Commanders are really fun. I hope they do the opposite of, and it seems like they will do the opposite of what the Cowboys did, which was completely waste the youth of the early contract and just keep loading up the offense and defense to have the strongest chance they can. As you might have seen on this very channel during playoff best ball drafts, told Tom, I think Washington's highly underrated. Jaden Daniels is awesome. He's MVP caliber as a rookie right now. And the defense has played good enough. And the offense can win in multiple ways. I think this is a team that's undervalued in playoff best ball drafts. And it was. Just saying. Who'd you handcuff? You handcuff H-hand with Wright? Yeah. I mean, right now, that's fine, right? But just for hyper fragile, maybe not the most sound thing to do, especially with someone who I'm having a hard time with Jalen Wright because I think there's a lot of guys that in this class specifically that fit well in the McDaniels yak explosion style offense. that make that really tough. Because Wright was just bad. He just couldn't read the blocks, and he just wasn't utilized a whole lot. And they kind of lean on like a bigger body. And there's a lot of fast, big bodies in this class. So I worry specifically about that. Raspy voice. Good God. All right, I think, is Schneid going to take Darnold? Probably not. I'm going to push Darnold for what? Oh, they've taken all the guys I want. Fuck. All right, well, sadly, we're going to get Wandale to build out the giant stack with Cam Ward to Malik Neighbors and Wandale. I hate it. And then hopefully we get Darnold to get a potential phantom Las Vegas Raiders stack and be our final quarterback 3. Off the Schneid, right? Want me 5th in the Big Mitten too. There you go. See? Smart fellas. Some Canadian, some Texan. Some would say Canada is the Texas of the North. Very outdoorsy, a lot of flannel, a lot of boots. Big animals. We have bulls. You have moose. Look at all the similarities. Yeah, I mean, we know McDaniels what he likes. He likes speed. He likes explosion. And that's every damn running back in the class, not named Cam Scott. All right, cool. We get Darnold. So we get all 3 of our quarterbacks stacked. I wanted to get a 3rd quarterback there, knowing that I was only going 2 at tight end. I don't want to go 3 at the onesies with that much draft capital, and now I can fill out. I think we're probably going to end up with a 3-6-8-2 build here. But as we just picked in our 16th round, we have Jaden Daniels, Cam Ward, and Sam Darnold at quarterback. As mentioned, 2 picks past ADP. Woo! Running back, Ken Walker, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Trey Benson, Tyler Algier. Like we said, really comfortable. I knew I didn't want to take running back at this turn. Likely wanted a quarterback and a receiver. We did both at this turn. Wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Tech McMillan, Juwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers, Jalen McMillan, and Wandale. What have you done for me in half-point PPR fantasy? Robinson as our potential second stack. Cam Ward, who has accuracy concerns. I'm now thinking through that I don't love that pick, but stacks for stacks. And then tight end, like we said, Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren. We're not going to add more to that room. But yeah, if they're trading up, if Giants are, in this scenario, Giants are trading up to 1 to take Cam Ward, which means they're lacking draft picks potentially this year and next year. Might lose a 2nd or a 3rd this year, unless they punt it all in the future, which, I mean, they have every incentive to do that. And Titans need as many picks as they can as they rebuild. I think the Titans and the Raiders stand out as the likeliest landing spots for Sam Darnold. Raiders might be more aggressive, with the Titans feeling like maybe they can trade down and just throw shots on goal with Levis and rookies. And maybe like a Winston or something. That is assuring me, saying I will love having Short King Wandale Robinson on my team. Okay. Texas was a late addition to the Union. And Canada. Oh, buddy. LOL. Texas history is wild for those of you that don't know. The short and sweet of it. We won't get into it. It's a hilariously stupid Texas state edition history. If you're not familiar, it's very America. Well, Thad, the best predictor of what a player is going to do just so happens to be what they have done. And for Wandale, the last 2 years, he's been a pretty strong target earner, but at a painfully low ADOT for very low after the catch stuff, which is tough because one of the things he looked like he might be exciting about as a 2nd round rookie was the ability to be like a seam stretcher, explosive deep play guy, a la Josh Downs. Maybe he can do that with a better deep passing quarterback. Fair enough. His quarterbacks have been Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito, so maybe. But to this point, he hasn't been. And we hope that his quarterback is better. Could be Bryce Young or Trevor Lawrence year 1, though. We don't know. But you're right. I've made the bet. I may as well play the bet out and keep investing in the Giants. We are rocking and rolling along. Dart goes in the 17th round. They are locked into him being first round quarterback off the steam. We have a decision here to potentially add Eckler. Eckler goes right in front of our face. Tough scene. Scrolling down for rookies, I see none of the fun ones. Prioritizing receiver doesn't make a lot of sense because, as I thought, y'all have taken all the fun ones. So I think we're going to take Jordan Mason here as our San Francisco stack and handcuff. Sounds like they're going to tender him and add him. And so, if CMC is going to struggle, Isaac Guerrero does have soft tissue injury history with hamstrings. Mason could be a guy who gets a lot of workload. There are worse handcuffs in worse offenses at worse prices. So at 202, very happy to add Jordan Mason to be our 6th and likely final running back. And as we likely finish we got 3 more picks. You started with 2 receivers through 3, 4 receivers through 7. Maybe we get away. I say maybe we get away with that, but some of these late receivers are tough. Yoshi Voss, 20 picks best ADP feels fine to bad. He's going to be on the team. He just wasn't very good. But if Gesicki, wide receiver 7, there's worse picks. He's attached to a good offense. He himself wasn't too good. He was pretty much just a touchdown merchant. Touchdowns are good. If Chase or Higgins or Gesicki miss any time or don't return to the team, his ADP likely rises, and he's likely not a terrible pick. It was tough to like anything there with folks taking all the fun rookies. Because, let's see. Royals and Noel probably went 1 or 2 rounds early. Higgins went, Mountain Man took him in the same range he goes. Yeah, I just missed the boat with Mountain Man and King of Kings taking the preferred rookies before Wandale came back to me. Fair enough. Let's see. We got Delwyn saying that he's been tabling Sanders as a bust for months because of his happy feet. I think the sacks are his sacks are dangerously close to bust territory. We know that sacks are wildly important. All right, hold on. Yeah, I think Sanders shares really bad company with sack rate in college. Well, Thad, some of us do happen to watch some of the games, and I'm just saying, advanced metrics and ADOT, not great, Bob. Also, Dable's, I think we can say that we trust Dable to run his offense pretty well, and he's only really utilized Wandale as a glorified checkdown machine, is the concern. In PPR, I think he's fine. So good. In half PPR, I struggle to see the value with an undersized guy who doesn't really have a depth role on the offense thus far. And they had every chance to do so as they phased Slayton out and phased Hyatt out. So, and they could add more competition that could easily take his role. Royals, Higgins, who else? Noel, Prather, any of those guys. Yeah, you and me both, Meg. When it's a friends and families draft right after the combine, I very much expect all the fun rookies. I mean, I'm on the turn. You're at least in the middle. You have a little bit better of a chance. You could have taken. You took Cooper over Royals. That's a no-no. I'm not taking Cooper over Royals at all. You had your chance for a nice, exciting rookie. You bit the hand that fed you there. Zeus saying, at this point of the offseason, you can tell yourself a story with any of these late running backs. I mean, absolutely. Well, here's the thing. Landing spot, draft capital, highly important. But also, once the draft happens, you have another 10 months that's going to go pretty much, for the 8 months for the full season and the fantasy playoffs. Any of these guys can matter for 1 to 3 to 7 to 12 games just because of how things work. How many backfields did we see lose 2 or 3 starters San Francisco, Washington, just to name 2 right off the bat. Cleveland. There was a week where people were going to start Pierre Strong. Like, yeah, a lot of these rookies can matter in best ball. Simply because of how chaos works at the position. Schneid saying he's literally 50% Besh in the big board. Bags are stuffed. Wow. A lot of Besh. That's a lot of Besh. Good Lord. I think we're going to build out. Someone took Tucker. That sucks. All right, we're taking Kyle Williams. Jeez, you guys are brutal. You're taking all the fun out of it. All right, so here's the question. We're at a 3-6-8-2 build right now. Last pick coming up in a few picks. Do we take a 7th running back with Ken Walker, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Trey Benson, Algier, and Jordan Mason? So pretty much 3 handcuffs, a very risky but nice price DeAndre Swift, a gamble on J.K. Dobbins being a starter, and Ken Walker, who at cost, I like the bet fine, but he has literally never played more than like 11 games. Maybe a spot where we say we did good enough with Neighbors, Tat, Jawan, Jacoby, Jalen, Juan. I read those names and I immediately think I need another receiver. Receiver or running back. Here we go. What am I sipping? Well, my brother, we are drinking a 0 sugar Dr. Pepper because I needed caffeine. I did not have time to run a coffee maker before stream. And I'm on a low calorie deficit day after 3 days of carb and calorie surplus loading on a successful lifting week. I think I've got like 1 or 2 more weeks before I start severely cutting. So today's effectively like a high protein, low carb, low fat deficit diet day, effectively a fast, but making sure I hit my protein goals. And everybody's very excited to hear about that. The running backs are tough. I think I just got to stick to my guns, taking to the receiver here. I'm not interested in Hopkins because I don't think he returns to the Chiefs. We mentioned Vele. We mentioned Ty. We're going to... We took Ty Felton. Wasn't sure if I wanted him or Ricky White, but I like Felton. We're going to take a shot on Felton. All right, let me catch up on the chat. Steph, welcome. Coming in right as we finish up the second draft and likely the stream, but I will take a moment to review our friends and family of the channel in the draft that filled it out and answer any questions. Schneid, who the hell is that Jarquez Hunter? Tell me about Hunter. Your sneaky pigs. See, Cooper over Royals is an insta regret. I have a strong feeling Cooper would have continued to fall unless Schneid decided he was going to take Cooper to pair with Allen in like what? That would have been the 180s. I still think he takes Bond over Cooper there, I'd imagine. Zeus saying even Sincere McCormick was relevant. I mean, yeah, especially running backs on bad teams where they're just throwing shit at the wall because like they don't care and they want to see what they have. I mean, absolutely, yeah. Tell you more about diet and cutting? You're being facetious? Oh, I thought this draft finished up. Oh, Turd Ferguson. Someone took Terrence Ferguson. Love that. Spork monster, that guy. Save a horse, ride a cowboy. That's what they say. Chili, good drafting, brother. Stick around and I will review your team if you'd like. As a thank you for everybody hopping in and helping this be a fun, pretty efficient draft where you all took all the fun players and left me with the stale ones. See, Schneid was never taking Cooper. He's a rookie hound dog. And you know that if you tuned into his appearance on PPR Tyler's stream or tuned into his drafts. And I believe off of recall, you were like 462, 469 out of 500 subs on your channel. So we did say in the first draft, but if you haven't, check out Off the Schneid. Support another small channel doing great work with some very great in the weeds rookie takes, grinding the college film and the Senior Bowl and all that good stuff. All right. So I got like no Jaden stacks unless we get lucky. So I'm just gonna call it Giants in Vegas and San Francisco and hope and pray. We got a couple stacks. Let me jump back in the appreciate you, brother. Huhaim saying I'm not in on Shadur, but I got 20 picks of value. I mean, he still likely goes in the first round. And if he does that, there's just, I mean, it's hard to redshirt a guy like that full season. My concern is that some people have been talking about like the Darnold team might also take Shadur, which could redshirt him just because of like money aspect, but I don't know. It's hard to keep a first round pick off, and I think he still is a favorite to go in the first round. No, I am actually interested in what, diet and cutting? Steph, what am I going to tell you? You don't already know. Calorie surplus, put on mass. Usually good to do 250 to 500 calories in surplus, no more than that. Otherwise, you're just putting on way too much fat. Calorie deficit, similar. 250, nice and slow, nice and sustainable. Usually no more than 500. Could be too catastrophic, could lose too much muscle mass, could be too high of cravings. I've learned that myself. I have dieted and gone down from like 183 to 160 in 60 days. Rebounded real hard. And that took like 30 to 50 miles of biking, some 12 and 1400 calorie days. For reference, I am 5'9", and I think I was like 184 this morning. So I'm on the bigger end. A little, I mean, it's probably like 3 pounds like water weight and carbs from the other day. I was like 180 like 5 days ago. So trying to pack on some muscle mass as I rehab from my shoulder injury last year before I cut for ship chasing Miami, and Vanity wants me to look good for the UK Sanctuary show up and the Miami thing. All right, let's see. Mountain Man, subscribe. Appreciate you. All right, let me get to reviewing the friends and family in the draft. What other nights are you streaming? Not sure. Kind of playing it by ear. I work a full-time job Monday through Friday. They're pushing us back in the office. Flexibility's a little light these days. I would say maybe Friday night. I am targeting to have the boys, PPR Tyler and Best Ball Guy, on the channel here for a nice trio. And if you've seen that trio, you know it's a lot of chaos, a lot of fun. If you like arguing and yelling and stupidity and jokes, and sometimes some really good drafts. Planning that for probably like Saturday or Sunday. So look out for that. Probably Sunday, maybe Friday night, maybe. Depends on who I can get, unless y'all just want solo me for 2 hours. If I do that, we'll see. Oh, Meg took Roman Wilson in the what could go wrong? Yeah, exactly. Did you? Yeah, okay. After we lost everybody we had for me talking freaking dieting and cutting for 7 minutes. Thank you, Steph. Okay. All right. So Stockton, Bijan, Jacobs, Moore, Flowers, Mixon, Reed, Burden, Bow, added Braylon, Troy Franklin, Derek Carr, Hill, Mondre, and Akine. Don't mind that team at all. 3683. I think Akine could likely get. I wouldn't be surprised if Akine is who I hope Slayton is. As far as like deep threat guy who just pops with yak. Solid tight end room. Not sure where Ingram ends up. Does seem like maybe he's not long for the Jags. Don't know that I would have done 6 running backs with Bijan, Jacobs, and Mixon. I'd probably lean more like 5, but you did wait a good while before you did Braylon, Justice, and Kendre, so I don't mind that at all. Don't know that I add Justice to a team like this. I'd probably try to shoot a little bit higher for a guy who can overtake the backfield. But otherwise, pretty solid. Nice stacks. You got Vele. I maybe would have gone Vele and Franklin to try to get the double stack, because I don't know that you're going to get Ingram to Denver, considering you took Bo. I know it's after ADP. Probably would have done that over maybe Akine. But maybe he's the bargain bin receiver they add. Arizona Mountain Man 3773, Burrow, Lawrence, Gino, added Jordan James and Nick Chubb. Love Nick Chubb late, as we mentioned with Tom. And then backfilled his veteran-heavy receiver room with Alec, is it Alec? Menor? I'm going to fuck that up so many times. Jaden Higgins and Gabe Davis, who is under contract for the next 2 years minimum for the Jags. And then Kittle, Arroyo, and Fant. I am not taking Fant in this day and age. I think Fant is a free agent, is he not? And I've heard zero rumblings of him returning. I stand corrected. He's under contract this year, but if he's a pre-June 1 cut, they save $9 million with only 4.5 dead cap. And if they post-June 1 him, same thing. So they could save money cutting him. FYI. That exactly. Cowboy, BBG, P. Tyler, 3 Kings. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, I get it. It's not really science. I just listen to all the. I mean, Davis and I listen to a lot of the same guys. Dr. Mike Israetel, Jeff Nippard. There's another guy I listen to. I've learned through I.O. Manor. Okay, and is it a lick or elick? I wonder. I.O. Manor. That makes more sense. Trial and error for losing weight and gaining muscle. But science-based is the way to go. But then there is, what your body does react well to. I can fast for like 3 days and make it okay. I can work out fasted. I can work out on a carb cut. I can work out on a fat cut. My body can deal with a lot of pain and misery. I don't think a lot of people can do that comfortably. So, whatever works. Yeah, you mentioned you didn't love Sanders, but there 195 I think is very solid. Hurts being the only quarterback to miss the fantasy playoffs 3 years in a row. I don't mind taking a third stack. Especially, some nice values there. Chuba, Judkins, White, Ray Davis, Damian Martin. Quinshon Judkins is the guy that I think I need to catch up taking personally after the combine, and I'm still not doing a good job of doing it because I do think it's a nice solid pocket of wide receivers there. So I might have to start going wide receiver early so that I'm more comfortable taking Judkins there. Martinez and Will Shipley, nice stack. Nakua T, Ridley, Nakua at 3, very nice. Nakua, Higgins, Ridley, Mooney, Shaheed, QJ, Pierce, Angelin Polk. Where do you get your ideas from? McBride, Goddard, Higbee. Interesting choices to go 3 onesies with the elite quarterback and the elite tight end. I don't mind it though. I am manure. Very nice. Look, I'm not trying to be funny. I just know. Fuck you guys. That's what I'm saying. All right, who else we got next? Who Hames is from the 3. I don't recognize these names. Megan, as we noted, she went 5 running backs, not 4. Baker 3593. Baker, Caleb, Aaron Rodgers. Man, I think it's really him reaching out to the Giants and them not reaching back out. I'm pretty concerned no team puts up with Rodgers because they want him to be a bridge. He doesn't want to be a bridge. It's potentially bench late to let them get a look. See, so I am worried now that Stafford's gone back to the Rams and the Raiders aren't picking up the phone immediately. I am pretty concerned Rodgers just doesn't have a starting role this year because of the bullshit he brings, even if he's cheap. But maybe he sucks it up and goes and plays for real cheap for the Cleveland Browns. I don't know. I haven't really heard anything that makes me think that he's playing anytime soon. Gibbs, Achane, Bucky, Scatterbo, and Wright. Fun running back room. Rome, Adams, Godwin, Bateman, Marvin, Stephon, Cooper, D-Rob, Roman. What if all the players that are hurt, injured, or underperformed last year are the guys you need? Wide receiver room. Otten, Fannin, and Gesicki. Fun and nice. Hopefully you bumped into some nice stacks with Rodgers. King of Kings with a 2693. 2693 with Jared Goff and Justin Herbert at quarterback is bold, but I respect it. Kyron, Tracy, Bigsby, Gordon, Brashard, and Antonio. You're why I couldn't get Brashard, taking him at 200. You little sneak. Amon-Ra, Lad McConkey, J-Mo, Chris Olave, George Pickens, Hollywood Brown. Olave, Pickens, Brown, guys, I'm just not happily clicking very often. Although, now I say that, ever since Carr is more likely to start and potentially full season, I'm more into Olave. I was not into it when it could have been Spencer Rattler. Royals, Besh, and Deontay Thornton. Got to take Tyquan Thornton's cousin now that he ripped the combine. If the Patriots draft him, that would be so perfect. You have a chance to do the funniest thing, Patriots. Please do it. And then in tight end, Andrews, Pitts, and Mason Taylor. I'm not really taking a lot of Taylor or Kyle Pitts, so, the all fade Tyler team is what King of Kings built. And then I believe Shilly and Schneider, last two at the 11 and 12. 3-6-8-3 for Shilly, Mahomes, Young, and Fields. Fields getting some strong market play, apparently, between the Jets and the Steelers. The Steelers preferring him to Russell Wilson for the last 2 months consistently, and now the Jets potentially giving him competing salary. So it seems like Fields might be long for a nice starting job one way or the other. I feel better about him signing in the Jets than I would with him staying with Pittsburgh. But the insiders in Pittsburgh are saying that at least the beat, they're not expecting a quarterback to be in play in the draft. So Fields potentially locked into a starting job. Either way, I'd be more excited about him with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Glenn than I would Arthur Smith for sure. But he's a nice pick. I'll start adjusting back now that he's likely a starting quarterback. Checking on the chat real quick. Okay, y'all talk amongst yourselves. Perfect. Genty, Connor, RJ Harvey, Javonte Williams, Trevor Etienne, and Khalil Mulling. So really starting with two really solid starters, and then just taking shots at cheap running backs and cheap free agents and hoping to hit 2 or 3, which I think is a solid strategy. Loaded up with Brian Thomas, Worthy, Devonta Smith, Cortland Sutton, Josh Downs, Travis Hunter, Keenan Allen, and Adam Thielen. Nice texture of guys there. Big fans of a lot of those guys and their prices. Maybe Worthy's the one I'm most iffy on, and he might just have such a clean setup with Kelsey, Hunter, Henry, and Jawan Johnson. So gets the double stack with Mahomes, and then takes the budget bargain bin tight ends. I'm just talking about there's only so many starting positions, and there's only so much money for some of these teams. And a lot of these teams just want to hit the reset button. And we've seen teams avoid guys with circus drama before. And I don't think Rodgers played nearly good enough to make a team go like, we'll put up with whatever. I truly don't think so. His best bet is the Giants, who are actively trying to trade up to 1. I think that tells you all you need to know. And then off the Schneid at 12, I think a team should do it, but I get why they wouldn't do it if they're trying to rebuild and just have a bridge. Allen and Tua, Henry, Brown, Bashal Tutin, Jerome Ford, Audric Estime, and Jarquez Hunter, Drake London, Jalen Waddle, Khalil Shakir, Michael Pittman, Keon Coleman, Dontavian Wicks, Noel Bond, and Malik Washington. Just going for the stacks, going for the breakouts, going for the underpriced guys. And then at tight end, Laporta, Jonnu, and Jatavian Sanders. I mean, just well built, well constructed, a sound 2-6-9-3, the right types of hits, and you pray to the fantasy gods and hope to get lucky, right? Shilly's saying he tried something different. He's usually not that wide receiver heavy. You mean for total amounts? Because you built with 8. So what, you're saying you usually end with 6 or 7? Because I think you early on you were what? Oh, or was it that you were 4 wide receivers through 5? I think it's good. Huhaim is asking about the elite onesies. I wasn't planning on it, but felt everything else was solid enough, and value on Shadir and love Higbee. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't think it's bad because I don't think anything sticks out that you absolutely should have hammered, honestly. I mean, the running backs there are just as shaky. Wide receivers are just as shaky, especially in this room where the fun ones were long gone. I think it's fine. Shit ping pongs, and you've built yourself a tight end room where any one of those guys can fill in at the flex if needed with multiple touchdowns. And and all those guys have scored all of them except for McBride have scored 2 touchdowns or 150 yards, 100 yards and a touchdown. So I don't mind it. All right, folks, thank you so much for hanging out here on a Monday afternoon with Tom and myself, especially sticking around for the second draft. I wanted to reward y'all, more talk, more time, more takes, more jokes, more yucks, more laughs, more love, more everything, more, as we say. So thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks for drafting. This was a fun one. I always love it when all of the fun gets sucked out of the room and we have to settle for whatever. But I think we settled on a nice, solid 3692 build. Don't mind it at all. So appreciate everyone that joined us. Please hit the like, please hit the sub if you haven't already. Every and all comments afterwards help us a big amount on our road to 3,500. And like I said, if you're interested, please think about becoming a member for as little as 99 cents a month to become a member. Get some awesome ranks, get some awesome access behind the Discord, awesome community, and a lot of fun things planned coming up for this hot best ball summer. So, keep coming around. Appreciate everyone new that joined. Welcome to the sanctuary, and see you next week, next Monday, for even more drafts, and likely this weekend for a very special guest episode. We're targeting Sunday. So hope to see a lot of y'all back. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a great week. Catch you later.